What is up, my friends, and welcome to another edition of AEW Week in Review. I am your host, Mark Perry, editor of Pro Wrestling News Hub, covering pro wrestling and not sports entertainment. On this week's show, Matt Jackson dealing with a partially torn MCL. Crazy news, I'm super excited. AEW game announcement next week. And more, plus recaps of this week's Dynamite, Dark, and the latest TV ratings as always. How do you get in touch with the show? You email podcast at prowrestlingnewshub.com or call with or send your MP3s or call 888-430-7692, extension 3. Remember, cutoff time is 6 p.m. Eastern on Thursdays. And leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. We'll read it on the show. So what we got in store, this is a jam-packed, probably one of our biggest shows ever. So we have a special, just for the record, we will have a special recap show of AEW Full Gear that will come right after the pay-per-view. So stick to your podcast gimmicks or your YouTube channel. We'll shoot that out there for you for our recap of Full Gear. We'll get your reaction to Full Gear. After that, we'll put that as part of our next show. So not the Full Gear recap. In this show, we have highlights from Cody Rhodes now, I guess, or Cody Rhodes. Media Call. We'll get to some highlights that we were a part of that. My AEW Full Gear predictions, as well as Mr. Fourth Row checking in. You got his predictions as well, your social media stuff. I have a video out there of a little bit of the bubbly. That's right. We got a unboxing of the little bit of the bubbly. You got to check out our YouTube channel for that. It's pretty cool stuff. I'm saving it for New Year's Eve to crack a little bit of the bubbly. Probably that and when the XFL season kicks off. I think those are my two big return little bit of the bubbly. So this week's question of the week's clearly your picks for the AEW Full Gear. We'll get to that. Next week's question of the week. Your grade for AEW Full Gear. You got to give it A, B, C, or F. That's all right. We want to hear your grades for AEW Full Gear. We have so much stuff going on. So without further ado, folks, we'll get into the news. We'll get into Cody's media call and so much more. So without further ado, folks, let's just get into the week that was AEW. All right, let's go through the AEW Dark results for November 3rd. First up, Darby Allin defeated BSHP King. Brandy Rhodes and Red Velvet defeated Layla Hirsch and Elena Black. This is the first time they have gotten together, and it looks like Red Velvet is now part of the Nightmare family. Jurassic Express, Jungle Boy, and Luchasaurus defeated Danny Limelight and KC Navarro, his first time out there. Frankie Kazarian defeated Razine. Ricky Starks defeated Dave Dutra. Griff Garrison and Brian Pillman, they defeated Sean Maluta and Alex Chamberlain in a tag match. It'll be interesting to see. However, Lance Archer came out and attacked everyone and cleared out the ring. Interesting to see Griff Garrison and Brian Pillman Jr. get the win. Max Caster and Anthony Bowens defeated Aaron Solo and Angel Fashion. Max Caster and Anthony Bowens signed with AEW. Dark Order's Allen Angels defeated VSK. The Butcher and the Blade defeated Jersey Muscle. Will Hobbs defeated D3. Dark Order, Evilus Uno, and Stu Grayson defeated Nick Coromondo and Baron Black. Dark Order, John Silver, Colt Cabana, and Preston Vance defeated Sean Dean, Cesar Bonani, and Fuego del Sol, one of our favorites there. Kaylin King defeated Leia de Tapia. Leia D was from wrestled in Impact Wrestling, a couple other places, but Kaylin King gets her first win. Private Party, Isaiah Cassidy, Mark Quinn defeated Chaos Project, Luther, and Serpentico. About Luther. Sammy Guevara defeated Lee Johnson, and that is your main event on Dark. AEW Dynamite results for November 4th, the go-home show for the Full Gear pay-per-view. And I thought it might have been weak, but it actually turned out to be pretty good. First up, Ortiz and Sammy Guevara versus MJF and Wardlow. Winner, no surprise here, Wardlow and MJF. After we gave this one a grade of 3.75. This was a good match to start things off. Sammy Guevara was on fire during this match. And then at the end of the match, MJF attacks Chris Jericho, and that was a nice little twist to their thing that's coming up. Then we had a Kenny Omega segment with somebody else's dog at somebody else's house, and that was interesting. Miro versus Trent. This was my match of the night. I thought Miro and Trent put on a great show. This was a fantastic match. Best match that we've seen with Miro, and Trent has always been doing well in the singles action. We got a little Dark Order jumping Orange Cassidy, and that has to do with the whole Full Gear build-up. Winner, Miro. We gave this a 4. This was our elite match of the night. If you have a chance to check it out, definitely see it. Miro did fantastic. I mean, this is the first time he's had a singles match apparently in like 8 or 9 months or something like that. So he did a great job. This was definitely our match of the night. Then we had a Hangman Page segment. He's drunk. Then we had Taz, Brian Cage, and Ricky Starks segment. And I really think this is definitely, they could have something to do with Full Gear. They said they're going to be there. Their presence will be felt. I wonder if they interfere in something. We shall see. But Ricky Starks and Brian Cage should be on a pay-per-view, no? Tag team match, filling in for Scorpio Sky, Sean Spears, that got canceled because, not that Scorpio Sky had COVID, but he was around somebody that did, so he was quarantined for 14 days, so he was out. So we got Private Party versus the Young Bucks. And hey, for throwing this one at the last minute, this was a great match. Winner, the Young Bucks. I gave this a 3.75. This was also a good match. It'll be interesting to see how the Young Bucks deal with stuff. There's supposedly Matt Jackson is injured, and then FTR came out afterwards. It'll be really interesting to see how that goes down. We got the Jon Moxley, Eddie Kingston segment, and boy, if that's like television that keeps you riveted. Now I'm not a super fan of Eddie Kingston's wrestling game, but his mic game and just pumping things up and everything else, I mean, he is an A+. This had me totally locked in. I thought they were going to go at it. They knew each other, talking about his mom, all sorts of stuff. Now, this got you pumped up subtly and simply. I mean, you have these other things before with the signing the contracts, and then we know what's going to happen. This one was like, they can't touch each other, otherwise the match is canceled. So that was a great little twist to throw in there, to have them go back on the mic, and the way they positioned it with Eddie Kingston with his back to Jon Moxley and let him talk. It was just a fantastic segment. If you want to check it out, you should definitely check it out. Speaking of segments, we hear from Pac, and it was just what I figured it would be, not really telling us much. Was he going to come back? It was a pretty cool segment. It just says that he's ready to go again, but we got this segment a couple months ago, and nothing really happened of it. So unless he's coming to the States to wrestle, then I'm not really interested per se. I want him back. Butcher and the Blade take out the Natural Nightmares. Then we got Nyla Rose versus Red Velvet, who's basically has signed a contract. She's on the roster. Winner, Nyla Rose. This one was a 2.50. I thought Red Velvet did good. She's ready to go. Nyla Rose was fine doing the Beast Monster kind of angle. She was fine too. And it is what it was. It was just a quick segment. That's why I never really grade these women wrestler segments very high, because they're just very quick segments. We got a Kenny Omega versus Paige with the old "Don't Know What You Got Till It's Gone" song. I posted on Twitter. I thought it was kind of corny, the music. I guess that's what it was supposed to be. I don't know. I get a little worried when we go with a goofball kind of angle on things too much in pro wrestling. I just get a little worried about that. Then we got the final match, Cody and the Gunn Club versus Dark Order. Cody and the Gunn Club get the win, gave this a 3.25. Austin Gunn gets the pin. That was good for him. He's been a big part of the crowd on the side throughout all of the COVID pandemic era wrestling. So it was nice for him to get a win, and now that the Gunn Club is part of the Nightmare family. And finally, Cody calls out Darby Allin, and we'll see how that all goes down on AEW Full Gear this Saturday. Because AEW Full Gear is next week. We didn't really get many announcements for next week's card. However, we got two, and one is a doozy. We get a rematch of the classic Penta L0M versus Rey Fenix. Remember, Phoenix won their last matchup, but he had to forfeit his match with Kenny Omega due to an injury. Penta replaced him and lost to Omega in the AEW World Title Eliminator Tournament, and now we'll have the conclusion of that at AEW Full Gear. Also announced was the Natural Nightmares versus the Butcher and the Blade. Battle's been brewing between them after the Bunny left the Nightmares. We knew this was coming. She was by QT Marshall's side most of the summer. It was kind of awkward. All of a sudden, she was by his side. Not really sure what they were going with that. And she teamed up with Brandy Rhodes for the women's tag team tournament. They eventually lost the finals to Ivelisse and Diamante. Maybe that's why they just put them together, just because they were kind of thin. The Bunny then rejoined Butcher and the Blade recently, and they've been taunting QT Marshall. They did on AEW Dynamite this past week. And so now we're going to get a conclusion of that. So guaranteed there'll be more matches announced after AEW Full Gear. Ratings are in for Wednesday, November 4th, 2020 edition of AEW Dynamite. They were released by Showbuzz Daily. And don't freak out, AEW finished 56th overall for the night. And that is a good thing. Dynamite drew 717,000 viewers, down from last week's 781,000 viewers. They finished 12th overall last week. Dynamite was live this week at Daly's Place in Jacksonville, Florida, and it was the go-home show before AEW Full Gear, taking place this Saturday on pay-per-view. NXT drew 610,000 viewers, way down from last week's 876,000 viewers, which was their Halloween Havoc edition of NXT. It finished 68 overall. Last week, they finished 21st. That show featured Tommaso Ciampa versus Velveteen Dream match. Now, the total combined wrestling audience for both shows was way down, 1.327 million viewers. It was 1.657 million total viewers last week. Why, are you asking? Well, if your head hasn't been in a rock, based on the ratings, CNN crushed the night. CNN crushed the night with 14 of the top 15 spots. Only Fox News came in 14th. Why? It's no shocker. The election coverage dominated the evening in the U.S. because the election is still undecided. So just a crushing thing. You think Fox News is popular, but really when news matters to most other people, they all watch CNN. So it's just a crazy numbers when you look at them. The only Real Housewives of the OC finished 55th. AEW finished 56th, and Guys Grocery Games finished 57th. People wanted to disconnect from reality for a little bit. Those were the only non-news programs in the top 60 shows on cable. The top 60, all news. Now, things should get back to normal by next week as long as the election is decided by the weekend. If not, it could affect their ratings. But still, AEW drops from 781,000 viewers to 717. It shows you how loyal the fan base is watching AEW on a consistent basis. I mean, just looking at NXT, 876,000 viewers, and then they're out, 610. They can only do gimmick episodes in order to get those ratings back up. But the AEW fan base is loyal. There's no question about it. The Young Bucks are set to challenge FTR for the tag titles at this Saturday's AEW Full Gear, and for the last several weeks, Matt Jackson has been selling an ankle injury, not only on Dynamite, but BTE, being the Elite. Now, according to Brian Alvarez, an injury might be legit. On today's episode of Wrestling Observer Radio, Alvarez explains, quote, "The story with Matt is he has a partially torn MCL and a thinning of the ACL, which is considered a slight tear, and that's why they are doing the ankle gimmick. So he has a legitimate injury, and I guess he's been rehabbing it, and I guess they figured they can do the match." So basically the story is he's just selling the ankle the whole time. Close quote. He added the leg injury happened back in July when Matt did a flying dive off the stage while working a match against the Butcher and the Blade. The Bucks and the Blade were reportedly, quote, banged up. close quote, after the match, but both tag teams returned to action soon after. It'd be interesting to see with this big match with FTR and Matt Jackson not being 100%, how that's going to all go down. As we previously reported on Pro Wrestling News Hub, WWE filed a cancellation notice with the United States Patent and Trademark Office last November 2nd, surrendering the trademark Cody Rhodes name, which gives Rhodes the full rights to use the name anytime he sees fit. Immediately after the main event of last night's episode of AEW Dynamite, saw Rhodes and the Gunn Club defeat Dark Order in a 6-man tag team match. Following the match, Rhodes grabbed the mic and spoke to the live crowd in attendance.
I have not had the opportunity to speak out here at the end of the night since we have welcomed fans back. How's everybody doing? Is everybody coming to full gear? Hey, where are you two? Hey, it is not easy. Austin Gunn, Dynamite debut. Billy Gunn. That was Billy's first TV appearance in 30 years. Billy, give him a double bicep. Show him what you're working with. Come on, G him up. Give me a drum roll, please. All right, we have a bunch of wonderful dark matches. I'm not going to be out here too long. I wanted to share something that is private between us. It is not a social exclusive. It's private. As of this morning, I no longer just have one name. And whether Justin Roberts says it or not, it feels really good. It feels really good to be Cody Rhodes again.
Cody Rhodes will be defending the TNT title against Darby Allin this Saturday at Full Gear. AEW President Tony Khan, in a recent interview with PW Insider, mentioned that the promotion has upgraded their medical protocols. This is in response to criticism from fans and media members after various wrestlers were injured during matches over the last several months. These new protocols will be starting at the AEW Full Gear pay-per-view. Both Alex Reynolds and Matt Hardy suffered scary head injuries during live shows, not to mention Abaddon's injury during a TV taping that did not air. Hardy suffered a bad concussion at AEW All Out after a botched spot with Sammy Guevara. We all remember this. He missed the table and hit his head on the concrete. That match was briefly stopped, then restarted, despite Hardy being clearly knocked out. It ended with a very awkward finish and Hardy's wife posting on social media how upset she was with AEW staff. That was kind of an ugly incident and kind of ruined the pay-per-view, to be honest with you. Alex Reynolds, on the October 21st edition of AEW Dynamite, was knocked out cold and laid motionless in the ring for a few minutes while wrestlers were doing spots around him. The Butcher eventually pulled him to the corner and tagged him out. This is what Tony Khan had to say, quote, "Yeah, you know, we've been recently doing everything we can to work on our protocols and make this a safe as possible work environment. I've added another independent neurologist to the staff. We've added an independent doctor to all the shows in addition to our staff medical team, and we're adding extra support. I've added a two-way feature where the referees can talk back to us if there are injuries so that the referee, not all communication is going one way, and we've encouraged the referees to let us know what's going on." Close quote. Christopher Nowinski, the former WWE superstar and CEO of the Concussion Legacy Foundation, is being brought in at AEW Full Gear. It's been over a year since Nowinski has talked to the staff and talent about head injuries. We remember Nowinski had a promising career and then concussions cut it short. Mr. Harvard, if you remember him. Then kudos to him. He started the Concussion Legacy Foundation, which has been a fantastic. Quote, I'm so excited to have Chris come back because I think he's a world-leading expert on head trauma and to other injuries outside of the head trauma. I think we ought to do our best there too, but I think that's probably the area we're the most concerned about being, making sure we're doing everything safe, close quote. So AEW, seeing that things are going wrong and getting a little ugly, and they're making improvements and improving their protocols. Hey, they've only been in business for a year, so kudos to Tony Khan and company. All Elite Wrestling dropped a commercial for the Saturday, November 7th AEW Full Gear pay-per-view. Some of the wording in the spot has fans speculating. See, the commercial starts off one of the hottest free agents and then shows some of the big names from the past that have debuted on AEW. Names including Brody Lee, Matt Hardy, Jake Roberts, Lance Archer, FTR, Mike Tyson, Ricky Starks, Matt Sydal, Brian Cage, Matt Cardona, and Miro, just to name several. Could they be teasing another big name debut at Full Gear? There is one biggest star in wrestling history who recently had their name and merchandise removed from the WWE shop not too long ago. There is rumored that this legend 6 months ago might be coming to AEW. Could that be back on? You'll have to find out. Maybe you're not sure who I'm talking about, but just look it up online. Just something to throw out there. It could be nothing, or maybe there could be something special in the horizon at Full Gear. Video game nerds are excited. A big announcement for AEW video game is set for Tuesday, November 10th at 6 p.m. We'll have coverage of that on all Pro Wrestling News Hub. AEW released a very teaser video, which basically just said AEW Games in it with some music and talked about the date Tuesday, November 10th at 6 p.m. Eastern. They also launched the YouTube channel, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook pages as well, if you're interested in checking that out, and telling fans to subscribe. Now remember, AEW previously filed the trademarks All Elite Wrestling, Elite General Manager, and Elite GM. In October, AEW Games was filed. Looks like the company could be working on several games, not just one. EVP Kenny Omega recently talked about AEW video games and said it will be different from any WWE title. Quote, it has to be very good chance at standing alone as probably the best wrestling product as a video game that you could possibly find on the market. That's the hope anyways, close quote. No further details have been revealed. However, if you look at AEW Games follows on Twitter, who they follow on Twitter, could give you some maybe insight into who is behind the game. Street Fighter, Capcom Fighter, Jeb Bailey, who is the founder and CEO of CEO Gaming Events and FGC Director and CEO Gaming, a fighting game tournament event series directed by Jeb Bailey. So I wonder if the AEW game might not actually be a game, but maybe they're adding wrestlers to Street Fighter and doing something along those lines. And this is the first foray into AEW video game stuff. It's just interesting. Out of all things, Street Fighter is somebody that AEW Games is following on Twitter. Stay tuned. All Elite Wrestling President and CEO Tony Khan recently had a conversation with PW Insider and noted that the company has officially signed indie stars Max Caster and Anthony Bowens to a contract as the tag team known as The Acclaimed. PW Insider also mentioned that Bowens was in the interest of WWE and that WWE wanted to sign him to a contract for their NXT brand. Last December, Bowens made his AEW debut on Dark when he teamed up with Lee Johnson for a loss to Chaos Project, Luther and Serpentico. He then teamed with Caster in October for a loss to Best Friends, Chuck Taylor and Trent. Max Caster, on the other hand, made his AEW debut on Dark back in June when he teamed with Luther and Serpentico in a six-man loss to Jurassic Express. Caster also lost a singles match to Shawn Spears on Dark last June. Caster took to Twitter to comment on officially signing with AEW and even talked about his match with Anthony Bowens on Dark. Bowens would then take on Twitter as well and comment on their signing, then thanked everyone for their support. Bowens also responded to his tweet, said that they're going to beat everybody up and insult them before they do it. So there you have 2 new guys on the AEW roster. AEW's Jake Hager remains undefeated with his victory over Brandon Colton at Bellator 250 that was briefly mentioned on the beginning of Dynamite this week. He wore an AEW logo on the front of his tights and came to the ring with an Inner Circle t-shirt. Very cool. Hager defeated the former Pittsburgh Steeler via split decision. 2 judges scored the fight 29-28 for Hager to give him the win. This is his first fight that went past the first round. The win brings Hager's MMA record to 3-0-1. The match went back and forth, and both men were left bloodied after round 3. Just like last Hager fight, there was another low blow. During the previous fight, Hager was disqualified after a low blow warning. Hager was not at AEW Dynamite the prior week to prep for the fight, which was part of the prelims of Bellator and was on the YouTube channel, Bellator's YouTube channel. The event took place at Connecticut's Mohegan Sun Arena, where they held all their events in this post-pandemic world. And congratulations to Jake Hager on the Inner Circle getting that win in the MMA world. It certainly helps his character.
Sure. One thing that's really special about AEW is, and we say it, and it sounds like a shill, but it's not a shill. We're open for business. Our bridges are down and our doors are open. What came up with Allison and Serena, who I can't say enough nice things about either of them, but particularly Serena, what a strong presence he was on not last night's Dynamite, but the week prior. Just really talk about stepping up to the plate. And I've known Serena since I was 20 years old. She's a very, very special wrestler. But in terms of that match, having another women's match on the card, I think Tony Khan was the one who had the foresight to connect with Billy. He's always connecting with Billy when it comes to the NWA presence, which is a lingering thing, and it's a good lingering thing. They have a good relationship, and like I said, the doors are open and the bridges are down for different companies and people from different worlds to cross over, and that is what you're seeing with AEW Full Gear. Having the NWA Women's Champion on the show and having someone like Allison, who has a great deal of buzz and who's captured the imagination of the audience, especially just recently, a great veteran, revered and respected in the wrestling world. I think it'll be a hell of a match.
Whose idea for AEW Dark, and what is the goal of AEW Dark?
So this is where I can take a little credit, but then I have to instantly give credit out, which I'm quite all right with. AEW Dark, the title was mine. I wanted to theme it after the Universal Dark monster movies that never happened in terms of its iconography and all of that. The concept was all parties, the EVPs and Tony Khan, of course, but where it's at now with so many independent wrestlers who are out of work due to COVID and due to the pandemic coming in, and so many matches. Dark is a staggering number of great matches every week. That credit is solely gone to Tony Khan and his love for the wrestling economy, bringing in some of the people like you named, and we're finding amongst that crop of talent in a much more conducive environment than a straight squash or straight enhancement where these competitive matches exist. We're finding some potential real diamonds. You mentioned Red Velvet. I think Red Velvet is somebody that's going to be a big part of the women's division. I genuinely do. And I didn't think that her first outing. It's been the second and the third outing, the continued application of what our coaches are giving them. Dark is another really wonderful space for our coaches and talent to go out there with super long leashes and have a lot of fun. We have Jerry Lynn, Dean Malenko, Dustin Rhodes, BJ Whitmer, Christopher Daniels, QT Marshall. We have these coaches from all walks of life and all different styles, and be able to be out there and not be hamstrung by Dynamite itself or those time parameters, perhaps. It's really created a wonderful thing. Dark is, if I was not on Dynamite, I would want to be the king of Dark. not unlike Ricky Starks is doing at this moment. He's very smart. I would want to be on commentary. I would want to be doing promos. I would be wanting to do competitive matches, enhancement matches. Dark's very special. And right now, Dark does not exist without Tony Khan and QT Marshall because they stay up all night. Me, little old me, I need to get my beauty rest. I have to sleep because I'm still wrestling. But Tony Khan and QT Marshall stay up all night coming up with the best Darks for the best people. And it's really been something that has assisted and supplemented Dynamite, which it was intended to do, helping us find, recruit, and develop new talent. Well, the goal of AEW from an executive standpoint, from where I sit, is always to expand. That's to capture international audience, casual fans, lapsed fans, and just recently, the data she's referring to, wonderful person here, and I'll shout him out. Chris Harrington put together an intense spreadsheet, and he color coded it for the ones of us who didn't go to college, i.e., me. An intense spreadsheet on how well we were doing and how pointed the data was in terms of families and homes, in terms of 18 to 49, the actual youth of the United Kingdom and how plugged in they were. That type of success hopefully will beget more success and more penetration / presence when it comes to our great TV partner that is ITV. So those discussions, to be frank, have happened. And the discussion of us doing a show in the UK, that's a no-brainer. I know I'm not supposed to break any news, and ultimately Tony Khan is steering this ship, but I can tell you flat out, we will when the gates open, when the world is open again, we will absolutely be in the UK. And I don't think for just one show. There's too many markets, and you haven't wrestled. You're not a wrestler, in my opinion, until you've wrestled in front of a UK crowd. There's nothing like it. They go a different way, and they go a very special way. So I'm really proud of that data. I'm proud to be partners with ITV. It was wonderful to see Pac back on the show last night, to have Anthony Go in terms of his commentary, learning from Taz and Excalibur at the desk. So our UK presence, hopefully we'll have a great 2021. We're definitely geared and heading that way, and I can't wait to see what else we do on ITV. So in terms of the third hour, and I say third hour, I don't mean a third hour on Dynamite. I mean part of the new contract with TNT moving forward is that we will have another presence on their networks, AEW. That we don't have any news we can share at this time. Doesn't mean we don't have any news, really good news, but we don't have any that we can share. I can say that it will not be Dark. Dark is its own beautiful baby that exists on our wonderful YouTube channel, and it's a lot of different elements because it's on YouTube. But the third hour will not be Dark. It will be a different take, a different look in terms of, but still the great action. Like I said, there's a ring, there's a locker room full of wrestlers. It's a wrestling show. But we don't have any news at the moment. It doesn't mean we don't have news, and I can't wait to share more with you when we have a little more clarity on it.
Did you know you can get all the latest AEW news right from your phone? That's right, we're excited to announce the Pro Wrestling News Hub app. That's right, and it's free. You can get it for your iPhone. You can get it for your Google Android phone. And they're both free. You get all our breaking AEW news, information from Pro Wrestling News Hub right from your phone. You can just visit the Apple Store or the Google Play Store. What do you get? You get the latest news from Pro Wrestling News Hub. You get push notifications when a new post or story comes out. You get our podcast on the phone. You can leave us a review on iTunes, links to our social media, and so much more. All you have to do is, if you have an iPhone, go to the iTunes store and just look up Pro Wrestling News Hub and download it. Just type in AEW News. You can get our phone app, and guess it is free, my friends. It's free. So head over. You get all the latest news right from your phone, from your friends from Pro Wrestling News Hub, whether you have an iPhone or an Android. And it's, best of all, it's free. All right, let's take a look at my predictions of the 2020 AEW Full Gear pay-per-view. Remember, you can watch the pay-per-view on Saturday, November 7th. Anywhere that's going to be live at Daly's Place. BR Live is kind of the place where you go to get it. The buy-in will start at 7 p.m. This is the latest card, so let's break it down. And I really wish we had pay-per-view pick 'em up, which is coming, and also our AEW fantasy application, fantasy wrestling app up. But we should hopefully get it, hopefully, by the next pay-per-view. That's the goal, is to have it ready by then, at least a beta version. All right, so first up, we got Jon Moxley in an I Quit match versus Eddie Kingston. I'd be really stunned to see Eddie Kingston win this one out, but I'm going with winner Jon Moxley. For the Women's Championship, Hikaru Shida versus Nyla Rose. Really not much of a build-up between these two at all. I mean, they've wrestled before, but it's like basically like, okay, who are we going to have? I doubt Shida loses, but hopefully this will make something new come out of this. We'll see where that goes, like Thunder Rosa if she came in, Serena Deeb. She definitely has other people, but yeah, the build-up to this match has basically been non-existent. But I'm going to go with Hikaru Shida on this one. TNT Championship, Cody Rhodes versus Darby Allin. Cody just got the belt back. I assume they want to keep him with the belt for a long time. He's got the Nightmare family. He added people to the Nightmare family. Maybe the idea is Cody kind of branches off and you have a feud between the Dark Order and the Nightmare family, and Darby Allin gets the TNT Championship. This one is one where I think maybe it could go to Darby Allin. And especially because AEW has been criticized a little bit for all WWE guys essentially having all the belts. This would kind of quiet that. Though Darby Allin really hasn't had much of a feud. There really hasn't been a build-up to this match either. But if I'm a betting man, I would assume Cody holds on to the title. But then what do you do with Darby Allin? I think you could go a big run with Darby Allin and Ricky Starks for the TNT Championship later on. That's a potential thing. But who's Cody going to feud with next? And it potentially could be another feud with the Dark Order as Brody Lee wants his championship back, something along those lines. AEW World Tag Team Championship match. It really should be the Young Bucks. I mean, the Young Bucks have yet to get any gold. This whole stipulation that they won't get the title if FTR just kind of basically came in and got the belts with no one stopping them. The Bucks, I think, should win this one. However, I have a feeling they're going to go with FTR, and FTR will continue. But then who does FTR feud with after this? They can't really feud with the Young Bucks. That's if the Bucks win, and they should win. The Bucks really should be the AEW Tag Team Champions. Then they guys can go back at it again. If the Bucks lose this one, then FTR is basically beating everybody in the company, and then what's the point? So I think the Young Bucks. I'm picking the Young Bucks to win this match. Next up, World Championship Eliminator Final, Kenny Omega versus Hangman Page. I am going this one, Kenny Omega. I think Kenny Omega is ready to be a bad guy and ready to be a top guy going into 2021. To get back to his original gimmick where he was one of the biggest stars in the world. He was the biggest star outside of anybody in WWE. Put him back in that spot. Let him have one big run again this year. He doesn't need to tag with Paige anymore. Paige can go off and do his own thing. Who knows what that will be. This is Kenny Omega's time. And 2021 should be Kenny Omega's year. He is a main event people want to come see, watch. And he hasn't really been used that on BTE. He's been kind of a goofball with segments. It's time to unleash Kenny Omega on AEW and the AEW world and the pro wrestling world in the United States. The Elite Deletion match, I assume Matt Hardy is going to win this one. It'll be in his home turf. Sammy Guevara will still get beat up. I think this will be good. And I think this is smart to do to allow them to tape it because Hardy, I think, is just beat up. And I don't even know if we really need him on the roster anymore. His gimmick is kind of confusing. It's like, are you delete Matt Hardy, or maybe that doesn't work now because there's no fans in the stadiums. Like, I'm not really sure where we're going with Matt Hardy. This is to just close out, hopefully, because of what happened the last pay-per-view with these two guys. So this will probably close it out. But I think Matt Hardy is going to get this one because it's going to be in his home turf. Really, if you really want to get Sammy Guevara over, you have him win this one to make it interesting. Remember, we don't want predictability. Singles match, if MJ wins, he can join the Inner Circle. A slow, no build up to this one. I mean, this has been, I guess, a pretty good build up to this match. I don't see MJF joining the Inner Circle. That would be very strange, unless they were planning on something else, or if they're planning to like get rid of the Inner Circle. They felt like it's stale going into 2021, and maybe they want to do something different. But I think MJF has a title run with something else. I don't see him and Chris Jericho teaming, though. It would make for great television. I think Chris Jericho wins. Chris Jericho has lost a couple times. I think it's time for him to get back in the win column, and he takes the win with beating MJF. Finally, the buy-in. I'm sure we'll have other matches too, but Orange Cassidy versus John Silver. Good to see John Silver getting a little push there, but Orange Cassidy definitely, he's had a nice little run for a while there. Orange Cassidy will get the win over John Silver, and that is my predictions sure to go wrong when it comes to the AEW Full Gear pay-per-view. All right, let's take a look at our social media stuff real quick. On the Twitters, AEW Jericho, Nick Jackson donate to an indie wrestler who broke his legs. It's really nasty. Guy didn't have insurance. I mean, just snapped them. I didn't look at the video. I couldn't look at it. Frederick Anderson says, cool. That, yes, they did donate that. Jericho did, and Nick Jackson did. And I think a couple other wrestlers did as well after this video surfaced. I don't have the video. You can find it yourself. No, just leave it at that. I cannot deal with that kind of stuff. But basically, he was on the second rope, and kind of twisted and jumped down and just broke both of his legs. Yikes. On last night's show, I said, what was with the Kenny Omega Adam Page segment music? I was confused. I was like, this is kind of weird, like cheesy, but okay. I mean, I was kind of half paying attention. Effie award winner Matt P. Douglas says they're going for that 50-plus Bass Pro Shops demo. And I was like, oh, yeah. And then Matt Palmer V1 says for the 50-plus demo, duh. And then I got it. I also heard Tony Khan or Cody Rhodes talking about it as well. And it looks like it was a Kenny Omega, Tony Khan idea, and they might be do more of that stuff in the future, he had mentioned. Speaking of your future is now, because we have Mr. Fourth Row checking in.
It's a go for another phone call there from Mr. Fourth Row. Hey, AEW Weekend Review and Mr. Mark. So the time is upon us, and it's time for AEW Full Gear this upcoming Saturday, and it's time to pick. So what's Mr. Fourth Row's picks? So I'm going to go from the card here to get my picks, just quick and simple. So we've got Serena Deeb versus Allison Kay for the NWA World Women's Championship. And I'm going to go with Serena Deeb to go ahead and retain that. I think it's too early to do a title switch. We've also got Orange Cassidy versus John Silver. Even though John Silver seems to have a little bit of momentum, I think I'm going to still go ahead and pick with Orange Cassidy. MJF versus Chris Jericho. If MJF wins, he's allowed to join the Inner Circle. That makes sense to me. I think they've been building that, and it would be a very interesting storyline to go on with that if that happens. We've got Nyla Rose versus Hikaru Shida for the AEW Women's World Championship, and I think it's time for Nyla Rose to regain that championship, so I'm going with Nyla Rose. Matt Hardy versus Sammy Guevara. I'm going to go ahead and go with Matt Hardy on that. Jon Moxley versus Kingston. I think I'm going to go ahead and continue to go with Jon Moxley for that. It's going to be a knockout, drag-out fight on that. FTR versus the Young Bucks. I'm going to go ahead and go with... it's hard to say. I think I might go with the Young Bucks because they said they they don't win, they don't get the challenge for the tag team championship again. I don't know if AEW is really ready to do that kind of stuff with that, since they're so young and the future is bright with AEW. So that's going to be what I'm thinking on that. We've got Cody Rhodes versus Darby Allin. Is it time for Allin to win that championship? It doesn't necessarily seem that the TNT championship needs to be on Cody Rhodes all the time. But does he lose it already again so quickly compared to the last title run? I'm really torn on this. I just don't know. So I'm going to go with, I'm just going to go for the shocker. My upset probably was going to be Darby Allin on that. And then Hangman Page versus Kenny Omega. I think I'm going to go ahead and go with Kenny Omega on this. I think it might be time for him to get the big push on that. So it's just hard to say. I think there's a couple matches here that are really tough to pick because I'm not sure where they're going to go after this on a few things. But anyways, that's my view. Not from the cheap seats, not from the most expensive seats, but from the fourth row.
All right, thanks, Mr. Fourth Row, for checking in. You got his predictions, my predictions. We'll see who's right, but it's going to be a lot of fun. Remember, next week's show, your grades for AEW Full Gear, A, B, C, or F. We want to hear from you. You want to be part of the show, you email podcast at Pro Wrestling News Hub or call 888-430-7692 extension 3. Follow us everywhere on the social media stuff, Facebook, Twitter, especially Twitter. I'm all over Twitter during these events. Instagram, got to work on that. YouTube, Pro Wrestling News Hub. We like, subscribe, etc., etc. Leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. We'll read it on the show. That spreads the word out. You can listen to this podcast anywhere you can get podcasts. For show notes, ProWrestlingNewsHub.com/AEW-podcast. Join our Discord. That stuff is in the show notes. I am super excited about AEW Full Gear. I bet you are too. It should be a lot of fun, and we'll have a nice little chat right after the show, and it'll be on your podcast feed or on YouTube. So check that out. Thanks for listening. Mahalo. God bless. Stay safe out there. Put that mask on, and I will see you all later.